Hello, Chris. How you doing today?
Fantastic. How are things there in the land of angels there, David?
It was raining this week, and I'm just waiting for we're recording this a day before the eclipse. I'm just waiting for this eclipse.
Yeah, the eclipse actually is going to be happening visibly for people on the other side of the planet down in Australia. And if you get up at the right time of day, you'll be able to witness it. And solar eclipses always have kind of a spooky element to them. So, you go into it with a sense of reverence and awe because all of a sudden the sun is being diminished. It's growing darker, and you'll notice that nature stops and pauses and observes. So
Yes.
eclipses are definitely odd energy.
Last year's, which was around this time on the May 20th, 21st one, it was visible here in LA. It was on our side. It was at like 3 p.m., 4 p.m. And I watched the whole thing, and it was the most amazing thing I ever had seen. It really was. It tripped me out.
Yeah, it's very easy to relate to our ancestors when we experience these major events with the moon and the sun. A lunar eclipse can be equally spooky, and
Hmm.
once again, it just it makes us aware of the fact that there are forces outside our realm of being able to manage and manipulate that we have to accommodate. We have to stop and do our rituals and honor the passage of the planets in the universe.
Well, starting this Friday, I would say we're in a rite of passage, right? We've passed the eclipse, and it's an exciting move forward in a new direction in our lives.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a fun weekend when you really stop and analyze what's going on because we've got this progression of Mercury, Mars, the Moon, and Venus. Venus will be already into Gemini, but the other three planets that are most intimate in our lives are going to be continuing to advance away from that opposition to Saturn. So the stress will be off, people will be feeling a lot more relaxed. And then, of course, as the moon moves through Gemini, it's very social. So a good
Hmm.
time to get out and have a little fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what this Jupiter energy is going to feel like through the weekend. Jupiter's finally pushed past that shadow period that it was in for pretty much a year that we had gone through. And here's the moon going to tap into this new energy. And it's Jupiter's ready to move forward. He's so ready to get out of Gemini, and he's really hightailing as fast as he can. So there's a lot of new information for us, expanding our information. And I think is going to be kind of the energy that we are in. Like, we're all going to be thinking about our new energy, about this new sense of worth in our lives. And I'm excited to see this because also Mercury is getting closer to conjunct the sun. So talk about really big epiphanies and understandings and clarity that we're coming into. It's really exciting.
Yeah, whenever a planet actually is exactly on top of the sun, or vice versa, the sun arrives on top of a planet in your chart, we have what is called a combust. And imagine the room filled with gas, and you lit the match, kaboom. So it can manifest in a positive way or a negative way, and really the idea is to keep your attention focused on the direction that you want your life to take, because that's when you'll get the information from this combustive configuration that will illuminate you. It'll give you a sense of direction. And Mercury, has a lot to do with money. So finances are going to be on the table this coming week. And we're going to have to figure out where we're going with what we're doing to create gainful income.
Yes, I think it's exciting because all the planets pretty much are free and clear of these big outer planets for a couple weeks, because then we're going to tap into Neptune and we're going to tap into Uranus as far as squares go, and so forth. We're actually in a very clear space here. This is exciting because after this eclipse, it's just like gung ho, build, feel it all out, really start to understand things. And Venus in Gemini is exactly what we need right now. And I think it's going to finish up what happened last year with the Venus retrograde. We had that Venus retrograde last year, which was also a Venus eclipse. And here's Venus coming in. And we had this energy last year in May, June. We had Jupiter and we had Venus that were both hanging out and starting to feel this new energy.
Yeah, it was interesting last year because Jupiter was on the opposite side of the sun and Venus was on the inside of the sun. And so you had this pair of planets that have a natural affinity for each other. Jupiter loves Venus and vice versa. And you had the sun nestled between the two. So a lot of people, I think, felt the, that initial jolt from that configuration, and we're getting close to having a very similar experience before too much longer this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to highlight a lot of why so much has happened over the whole course of this year of Jupiter Gemini, right? I mean, a lot of astrology can be just based off Jupiter. I mean, I know the Chinese base a lot of their astrology off just Jupiter transits. It's interesting to see that this Jupiter transit is starting to come to a close finally, and I'm starting to feel this pickup of remembering what happened over the last year. You know, I think this is also funny that we brought up the solar eclipse last year because that was at this 0-degree Gemini point, and here we are. Everything's heading towards this point again. There's another close from last year coming. Like there's this really big catapult of moving forward into completely new territory now, leaving behind that last year, leaving behind the last 6 months of the last solar eclipse in Scorpio. It's like both combined kind of energy leaving.
Exactly. And a lot of people keep looking back at the 2012 shift that happened in December and having dialogue about the fact that, over the last 2 months, we really have cleared that particular place in how the universe is aligning itself. And so now with Jupiter advancing into Cancer and getting into our deeper feelings and our sense of home, our sense of attachment to others and building a nest, all of those things are really going to be a subject of observation and discussion as we move more and more toward the end of spring and beginning of summer.
Yeah, all this 2012 energy, I mean, it's definitely not fully gone, but it's like you're not feeling that heavy weight as much. That was a heavy shift. We all had to, close our eyes and go through, that crazy border, wherever it is. It's a lot like just like going into completely new territory. And now we're kind of opening our eyes like, did we make it? Yeah, we made it. And it's like, wow, okay, yeah, it's all good. Brush your shoulder off and all right, let's move into this. And it's the excitement of this new moving forward. And, the sun is finally pushing past Mars. It's interesting to see that Martian energy we had that created the bombings, that created so much of what got us here is finally starting to chill out a little bit more, and that masculine energy is starting to trail. And here we are, the feminine energy is leading the pack now as far as the very personal planets. So we're wanting to feel more, we're wanting to create more, we're wanting to be more sensual in our lives and to feel our lives in a more beautiful way.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And in addition to the sun moving further away from Mars, Mars is moving further away from the opposition to Saturn. So we're getting a real nice trickle-down kind of compounded energy as everything starts to advance. So that final dance as everything moves out of Taurus is going to really bring a lightness back into our day-to-day, regimens.
Yeah. And, let's talk about this Pluto-Uranus square. I mean, we are almost exact. I mean, literally, it's going to be by next week that it's exact. So People can feel this now. It's not just the eclipse that you felt. It is this weird energy that this energy does not come around a lot. I mean, the last time this energy around really was in the late 1920s. Like it's very rare to go through this. And it's important to note that the last time Pluto and Uranus were together was in the 60s. So it's so interesting that this is taking so much of what was embedded in the 60s and really challenging to see if it can hold up in society today and really see how that is. I mean, it's interesting that, let's just take like sex, for example. That was like a revolution of sex in the 60s. And really, we're at this really weird period now where sex is pretty much free and it's open. Yet, you know, there's some weird energy still around it. There's weird energies around all this freedom and this excitement, and there's this wanting to restrict things very hardcore. I mean, if you just look at the world right now and with terrorism and so forth, like they just want to restrict everything. All that Pluto Capricorn is over obsessive about restriction and over obsessive about control. And then we've got this wild, like, let's go free and become new and be ourselves. And this is exciting energy. You don't feel this stuff much. It is wild.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And interestingly enough, a couple of days ago, when when Mercury passed over that node in Taurus, we had the stock market rally to its highest point in history. So that, to me, is a very interesting parallel to what we saw happening in the late 1920s with people playing games with their future and investing and trying to capitalize, and create a different vision of reality, a different outcome. So somehow I think that over the next 2 weeks we'll see a lot of things happening in Wall Street that have, shadows from the 1920s, and it's very much a part of this activity of Uranus squaring Pluto and Neptune being in square to Jupiter. So it's going to be an interesting period for finance and for dialogue about, what has value for all of us here on the planet.
Yeah, and how interesting that this week, it's finishing a lot of that Taurus energy, but halfway through the week, Mercury comes into Gemini, and that is the home of Mercury. So much stimulation. I think things are going to really start to pick up because Jupiter is in Gemini, and I think that is the big story that we're about to come into this spring, which will happen next week when the sun comes in to Jupiter. But Mercury coming in this week is really going to start to make things really still feel like, wow, okay, things are picking up. If the sun and Mars are still building this slower foundation to stand on, there's going to be this energy of like, okay, let's go. And the moon comes into Leo right when Mercury comes into Gemini. So there's this like halfway through the week, things are really going to start to open up in a bigger way and a little bit more passionate and a little bit more exciting. And, the sun's slowly but surely trying to get into Gemini, because once that happens, this whole like kickstart to the summer is going to get really exciting.
Yeah, it is. And it is, once again, going to be very social. I think the last half of spring this year, people are really going to be frustrated with having to restrict themselves, not only for the last few months, but for the last 10 years, 15 years. Once we had the Twin Towers event, Americans really had to kind of knuckle down and count their pennies. And I think this is the beginning of a shift forward where the national economy is going to go into a better state and people are going to be able to buy things, engage in new activities, and give themselves, some perks.
Yeah, it is going to be social. It is going to be really exciting. I mean, and I think we forgot to mention, and maybe you mentioned it, is like this weird Venus square Neptune energy this week that we're going to have. And I think it goes well with what you said about the stock market. So there's this idea, especially when you brought up Mercury on the south node in Taurus, this idea that all the wealth's there, everything, but yet Venus comes into Gemini and Venus is squaring Neptune. Don't make any big investments this week with money. I would just be completely honest with you. I would not make an investment in money this week. I think that you could get way wrong information. You could be way unrealistic. In relationships, I think this is going to be weird energy as well. There's so much. We want to communicate. There's communication, but it's like, is the gut right? Is where spirit leading this relationship? It can be kind of unclear. You want to know all the facts. One thing about Venus and Gemini is it wants to know everything in the relationship. Why? Why did you say that? Why did you do that? What is going on? Is that happening? Are you sure? Then it's like, oh my gosh. And then you've got the square to Neptune, and it's all because really you're like trying to understand and feel out, but there's this weird energy around it.
Yeah, it definitely has a sense of obscurification. It's like thinking your way into a box and not being able to get your way out. And I think we'll see that lighten up, though, on Wednesday as we see the moon move into Leo. Because when the moon's in Cancer, we've got all of these desires that come up that are, almost primal. And we've got that activity going on in Gemini, which is pulling us into the head region. And I think that when the moon shifts into Leo, we'll be able to reconcile those two elements. The mind and the heart will come together. Yeah,
this is going to be the end of the week, the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that just feels right. And it will feel good, on the weekend, like we brought up, Monday, Tuesday, but there is this weird, like, finishing up of the mind in Taurus and finishing up this Venus square Neptune, which, Venus and Neptune love each other, but when they're not loving each other, it's a little weird. It's a little, and especially, this has been kind of the story, which has been Gemini square or Pisces, which are both very big duality signs, but, both look at the information very differently. Like 100% differently. So when they square, it's a battle of information, spiritual information or mind and factual information. And so this can bring some very weird like battle energy. Well, like it's like spirit saying to do this, but logically it does not seem right. I would actually always go with spirit. That's just me. I'm just go with spirit. But the mind is going to totally start to think that it's completely right because Jupiter's here and now all the planets are coming here and poor Neptune in Pisces is all alone, holding this beautiful, this beautiful energy and like raising up the oceans and like saying, no, like here's the beautiful energy and it's magical. Yet our mind is going to say, nope, sorry, I didn't see it on Facebook.
Right, exactly. And it's going to be a lot of inner angst, inner conflict. But looking at the cards as we look at Friday and into the weekend, a lot of passion. The Ace of Rods is the dominant theme from late Friday afternoon clear through the weekend. So a lot of people are going to want to get deeper into their emotional range and discover, what it is that their feelings are attached to, how they're able to process their emotions. Because again, we got all this stuff going on in Gemini.
Yeah.
And then as the weekend winds down, there's a Seven of Swords, and that's looking back and making sure that you covered your tracks. If you got a little bit out of control over the weekend, Sunday night is a time for damage control. Go back and resolve anything that you had created that might be conflictive. So that pair of cards is real interesting coming up for the weekend.
Looks like me at the rave, that picture.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, is everything okay?
Yeah, and having that hood and cloak on with your 12-pack of Coors underneath it, it's kinda...
But, it's got all those swords. It's like trying to hold on to them all, but not, You know, it's like, did I?
Yeah, they can cut you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very intense card, and especially it's very mind. You know, it's almost like, did your mind hold on to way too much stuff? You know,
Hmm.
like, did it cut you? Ugh.
Yeah, clear the cache. But
Yeah,
then
right?
Monday, look at this. We have the Eight of Rods, the Arrows of
Oh,
Love,
yeah.
and good old Jupiter. See, all the emphasis is starting to shift from all of that Taurus focus over into that Jupiter and Gemini. So we're going to really see that enhanced as we progress forward into the week. And by midweek, look, Nine of Cups. And the Nine of Cups is a card of wish fulfillment. So this coming week, if you're really mindful, if you really are putting your intention, and if you're honoring your spiritual journey, you will see a lot of results start to show up midweek and forward into Friday the, what would that be, the 25th,
Mm,
24th. Yeah. So
yeah.
between now and the 24th, you'll be able to see a lot of rewards start lining up at your doorstep.
And that's a lunar eclipse coming up on that 24th, 25th.
Right. Hmm. So once
Third
again,
one,
we have
man.
the mystical experience.
We're only halfway there, everybody.
Yes, be patient.
There's a lot shifting for humanity individually, a lot of fate, a lot of destined stuff coming up.
Well, and as you know, people are watching the video and watching the progress of events over this next week. It would be nice if they leave us validation. If you're having personal experiences and you would like to share that and say, hey, you guys are pretty close with what you were talking about here. This is how it came up in my life. Definitely, leave feedback for David and I, because it's something that we appreciate and it validates what we're trying to do.
Yeah, please do. That would be amazing for us. And leave, your comments, and we appreciate all the support,
Yeah, it's really been kind of fun watching how people are coming back for extra dessert every week.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I'm excited to see where we end up at the end of this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a kind of a rocky road that we start off with, but by the time it's all over, we're going to be feeling pretty good about life. So,
Yeah.
the big thing is to just get out there and share the love. And if you do that, you'll lift yourself above the bumps in the road.
Yeah. Grab your beautiful lightsaber of love and go out there and use it.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Well, I'll see you next week.
Take care.
Bye.